Can everybody hear me okay? Yes?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Hi, thank you for inviting me to speak today. I will be talking about creative blurs, both in camera and in Photoshop. But if if I can do it, I would do mostly in Photoshop because I have a lot more control. Now, if you are a beginner in Photoshop and if you think that it is too much, then it's okay at least to know what the techniques are. You don't have to master them. Today is just the introduction of what are different blurs that you can achieve. And so I think most of you know me already, but if you don't, I am Padma Inguva. I am a New Jersey-based photographer. I've been photographing for a few years now. I've been teaching, presenting, and judging for about 7, 8 years now. And this is not my full-time job. I have a IT job that pays bills, and this is just for fun. And also the IT job pays for some of the work that I do here. All right. So I have a little bit of a presentation, and then we will go into the Photoshop, Lightroom and Photoshop, and then I'm going to show you some examples. So a lot of it is actually process oriented, okay? But people ask me, like, why do you do this? Like, why do you even have to do this? Meaning the blurs. Why do you need to introduce? Well, I'm not the one to introduce the technique itself, right? It's been done like hundreds of years ago, inspired like mostly the impressionistic painters. They've done this technique already long time ago. It's just that learning to do that in Photoshop is what is new, right? And now pretty much ICM, which is called intentional camera movement, which is also like intentional blurs. It's already a technique that actually exploding in last 5, 6 years. It got really a lot of popularity online if you look at it, right? Also, we all are living the real life, and sometimes it's not as pretty. So to take you away from the real life, to get you into that fictional space, a little, just like a fine artsy world, right? So some of the examples that you can actually, the old time painters like Monet's Sunrise and all that, like you can take a look at it. That's fine. My intention of doing the creative blurs is to get that softer kind of a mysterious effect. And also, I can do one image, I can take one image, and by applying various blurs, I can actually give a different look and feel. Just taking one image, I can come up with like 3, 4 variations of it. So your imagination and your technical skill combining with your creative muscles, and that the sky is your limit, actually, right? And also, when you're sitting at home and you don't have a lot of things to do, like a rainy day like this, that you cannot photograph, that the best thing is to just sit in front of the computer and then experiment. And the more you experiment, and the more skills that you are going to learn, and that can be applied to create a beautiful image. And also, you can take very ordinary image, like even like a fork. If you like take a steel fork, and if you do a little blurry motion with your camera or apply a motion blur in Photoshop, it turns into something that abstract, and it's like immediately transforms like a just a common object. So I hope that you'll take some of these techniques and then apply them later on. Any subject matter is good for blurs, right? Now, in camera blurs, you can do waterfall, seascapes, long exposure photography. You can do action shots, like, a soccer play, right? Like you could actually let the camera linger a little longer, then you can introduce the blur, right? And in the portraits, if you shoot wide open, your background is a blur. That is the kind of blur that you're introducing. It's not something new that I'm introducing here. You can try this with architectural, especially, you can take your camera pan vertically or pan horizontally, or you can take a regular image and take it into Photoshop and apply a horizontal or a vertical blur in Photoshop later on. You can try the same technique with like ornamental grasses, or you can go to flower fields and you can do zoom blurs. You can do, there's so much that you can do. Any subject is suitable, but you should be able to play with it. Like you should be open to the playful, the experimentation. So in camera, what can you do? And in post-processing, what can you do? I'm going to categorize them in a minute. So if I'm shooting in camera and I want to introduce blur, then I'm going to do the aperture control. So wide open aperture, that introduces blur in the background and focus on one subject. Or I can play with the shutter speed. Suppose with the water or with the clouds, I can let the shutter go on for like say 30 seconds on a wave. Then it automatically becomes like a long exposure photography. That's a blurry photography, right? And then waterfalls, same thing. You can have like these like pinprick water droplets by taking 1/500th of a second, or you can take 1 second exposure and then you can see the milky water. So that's by playing with the shutter speed, you can do that. And then intentional camera movement, like I said. And in intentional camera movement, there are various techniques. The panning, the zooming, the motion blur. You can drag your camera around, or you can do multiple exposures. So I'm going to show you the pictures in a minute. Just hold on to your horses. I actually, this is about 3 weeks ago, a Florida Camera Club. One person, he's like probably 80 years old. I don't know why he was so impatient. Okay, you're talking too much, you're not showing any pictures. And he sends me the message on Zoom and he drops out. And the president comes over. I'm sorry for such an impatient person. So anyway, in post-processing, you can do Gaussian blur, you can do path blur, you can do motion blur. There are various techniques. And on top of that, you can also use plugins like exposure software. Even Topaz has they used to have like Topaz Lens FX, and now they combine that in Topaz Labs, which Topaz Studio, which I don't like. But I still have the Lens FX from like way back when. So there's so many different ways to do this, right? In camera or in Photoshop and plugins and all that. Now, if you're doing the aperture control, I would say that you usually do it with like portraits of flowers, portraits of people, portraits of animals, or whatever. That means you're controlling the depth of field. Let me take this away. For example, you have the cherry blossoms. Now, the other day, oh, what happened? There was a little line there. Oh, well, too bad. Um, yeah, the screen, yeah. So the other day somebody told me that when he started doing flower photography, he got the advice that everything needs to be f22. F22. I was horrified because I'm a flower photographer. I never shoot an f22. And for me, this is the sweet spot where you see like wide open. There are a couple of areas that are like nice and in focus, but everything else is kind of blurry. It's like a painting. Like it's like you're walking into that world of flowers where everything is nice and delicate. It is not like you're not photographing metal, you're not photographing rough edges of architectural photography. So that's what I would say. Anyway, this is f2.8, and I would say settings don't matter, generally speaking, except for the aperture in this case. If six, 2.8, 3.5, you can get away with f5.62, and well, probably another 3-4 days you'll be able to shoot these kind of images outside. And then this is, well, I got it wrong. It's 4.5 aperture. Now look at this. This is shot in one of the gardens in Maryland called Brookside Gardens. So there are like lots and lots of wisterias. And so there are wisterias in the background that they're blurry, because if everything back to front is really in focus, then the meaning is lost actually. So you need to have some in focus, some in the like in the back end, like they're just supporting but not competing with the focus of the front flowers. That's how personally I like it. This more examples, like all this bokeh that you can create with the wide open this is f2.5. And then if you look at this particular image, this is a beautiful hibiscus, but then look at the background, is so distracting. So I took the shot. I could not blur the image because see, I need a lot of depth of field. That's a 4.5, and still not the whole flower is not in focus completely anyway. And by applying a little bit of Gaussian blur and a couple of other blur techniques in Photoshop, I was able to eliminate pretty much all the background distraction. So, for example, that's before and that's after. Basically, what you need to learn in this case is how to select the subject and how to, like, how not to showcase any, like, problems in with the, the selection process. You should not have any halos around the edges. You have to be very, very careful. So for that, I would suggest that when you finish your image, when you're doing this kind of techniques, blow it up to 200%, 300% in Photoshop, and go by inch, every little, like, or centimeter by centimeter, and then observe. If your halos, if your edges have halos, go back to square one and start working again. Because knowing the technique is one thing, but if you don't put in the time to actually finish the job, it's like if you put on a lipstick, it's bright red, it is very nice. But if you have a little smidge here, that's not going to look good. Like, yeah, you made up everything, but you didn't, you forgot to take it at the smidge. So now, shutter speed examples. Let's see. Okay, so in this case, I could have used 1/400th of a second, and I could have like a crisp wave, but that's not my intention. So by playing with the shutter speed, I was able to get that nice, capture the motion, nice blurry streaks of the water, and also look at the clouds. They're not crisp, but they have a little softness to it. Whereas because I was using the tripod, the little C stacks, they're like, you know they're in focus, but everything else is nice and blurry. And this is another technique that I use. I also teach seascapes, abstract seascapes workshops. I'm not doing it this year, but generally, okay. So I spend a lot of time at the shore, basically using up my 14 millimeter lens, and then I would just like 3, 4 inches, away from the ground, literally, and then praying that my camera doesn't fall into the ground, and that's how I captured these images. And now these are handheld, and then what I did in this case is the sky. I took the shots of the sky on tripod for like 3 minutes, 4, 5 minutes long. That's separately done. And then I take the shot for the water. That's like 1/3 of a second to probably like half a second, right? No more than that. And then I combine these two in Photoshop, because if you take a handheld shot of a sky with a 1/3 of a half a second, it's going to look really bad. It's going to look ugly. So that's why I said, okay, I'll take. So whenever I arrive at the beach, the first thing that I do is I take the sky shot. That I can use it for the entire session. If I got 200 images and I'm passing 5 out of them, all of them will have the same sky. However, my waves, the images of the waves are going to be different. Now, this is an image that I've shot. This is in camera blur. It's already there, and I was shooting in the rain with the umbrella and everything too. So again, you can do it in camera, and then you can enhance that later on in Photoshop, because this kind of shot you cannot just create that in Photoshop. You have to have a good image to start with. More examples of the blurs that you can do with shutter speed. The car trails is one of the examples. Waterfalls, more waterfalls, and then these swirls. If you combine a polarizer with a 3-stop or a 6-stop ND filter and use at least about a 30 seconds to a minute shutter speed, and then make sure that you're in the corner somewhere, though, when you see a little motion of the leaves, you are for sure are going to get the swirls. Now, somebody explained this to me back in the day when I was walking on a Ricketts Glen trail, and then I passed it on to other people. Like, how many people I stopped in their trails? And look, whenever I see people with a tripod, look, do you know how to make swirls? Do you want me to show you how to do it? Because I wanted to pay it forward, because somebody showed me while I was walking on the Ricketts Glen trail. And this is our Jersey Shore. I tell people that I live in Jersey, it doesn't have a lot of great nature scenes. Like, we don't have like big mountains and all that. However, we have a lot of drain pipes at the Jersey Shore. So you can actually make them look really pretty. So look at the shutter speed difference, right? I used a 2 second shutter speed, okay, versus I used 234 seconds. Difference is the same drain pipe. Okay, so it all depends on how much you're trying to, how much patience that you have, how much you want to experiment. And this one, I didn't have my filters with me. I was in Charleston. And so this is the first thing in the morning. We were walking, we went to like, this is my son and I. So I told my son when I saw this, like I thought, I saw the church, like stop, stop, stop. And right across the road, I set up my camera and then I had my remote, at least I didn't have my filters. So I took 50 shots of moving clouds, but I'm on the tripod. So I took all those 50, combine them in Photoshop at a stack mode called mean, and that's how I got the streaks. So in case if you don't have those ND filters, that's another way to get, the same effect. You're not manufacturing anything, you're just capturing 50 slices of the image and then combining them. Mean stack mode. Yeah. You're right in Photoshop. No, it's not HDR. It's called mean. I can show you later on. Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is another 50 or 60 combination of images that I combined in Photoshop. And then you can do blurs, amusement parks, those days are over and I could get on without throwing up or anything. So now I could take my camera. This is a 30-second exposure. These are all examples of blurs that you can do in camera. You don't need to have Photoshop. And then I have this ballerina. I shot her like different ways, and I ran out of any other ideas. Then I said, okay, let me do slow shutter. So slow shutter, it's just beautiful. Same thing, right? And then birds. So Middle Creek, it's a Pennsylvania. I went to shoot like 3-4 days in a row. I would drive from New Jersey to Middle Creek. And then the fourth day, like, what do you do? Like, so I started experimenting with the longer shutter speeds. It's not even that long. It's only 1/40th of a second. If you do a 1 second, I think the birds will be gone. It will be like a empty canvas. So now, examples of intentional camera movement. These are like zoom blurs and then, all kinds of different techniques. That's a zoom blur. This is just a crazy, ICM. This is a spin blur. These are all done in camera though, okay? So, and this one, I shot this like this somewhere in Maine. So I shot this, well, I pumped up the colors quite a bit. It's not that colorful, okay? So I'm not ashamed to say what I've done, right? But then this is after. Look at that. So I just use the Photoshop zoom blur feature to get there. And then I have my church windows. I really, really love my church windows. So where I go to a church, I do a lot of vertical panoramas. And then I started doing these during COVID time because New Jersey doesn't have, it has one cathedral. Everything else is not really Votorama worthy. Vodorama is like vertical panorama. It is good for like bigger churches, bigger cathedrals. So then how do I pass my time? By going to local churches and then just concentrate on these little stained glass windows, altars with like some interesting artifacts or features. So I took a zoom blur and then I took a regular shot and then I combined them. So why did I do that? Because when you do the zoom blur in camera, everything is kind of blurry. You don't want that. You would really want some place that your eyes can focus on. And the only way to do that is to use the Photoshop. But then if I just have this, the right image, then when the Photoshop creates a zoom, creates a zoom blur, it is too even. It's not organically created. So I wanted something that is a little bit chaotic, but a little bit order, and I want to control where I want to have the focus on. So that's how I got that. For the zoom blurs, if you have the tripod, that would be the best bet. Otherwise, you will have like quiggly lines because it doesn't matter how much you think you have steady hands, you don't. So yeah, yeah. So one of photographer friends of mine, she told me that you got to go to that Long Branch. So she took me to Mount Alberon Church. There is another, and then we started looking around other churches in the same town. We came across, see how many images I have taken. It's not just one. When you're doing the zoom blurs, you are, spin or zoom or pans or whatever, you don't do one. It's like, you never eat one potato chip, right? You have to eat the entire pack. The same way, you take multiples of images. Okay, and then I keep doing, this is my end image. I combined a few of those. You will not get this kind of effect if you are actually using Photoshop to do it. So you have to do a little bit of both in camera and in Photoshop. And then I did a whole series of New York City. So this is actually in camera shot. That's my finished shot. So you do vertical blur, okay, and then you do regular shot at the same time so that you don't have any white balance issues and such. And then this is my after shot. And then what I did, I actually saturated, I changed the color balance just a little bit to give that red sheen to the buildings. And then I did a crisscross blur. And basically I did a horizontal blur, I did a vertical blur, and pan, I mean, and then I combined them in Photoshop with the various blend modes. So I've done like multiples of these New York so more examples. This is a church that Al and we were driving through Arlington, Virginia one day, and then we saw these beautiful windows. From outside, we can see the light coming through those windows. It's like a divine kind of thing. Like we felt like we had to stop. So we stopped. We took whatever the shots of the light passing through and the reflections of it and all. And then once I came home, and this is pre-COVID, so when the COVID time, I started experimenting at home, sitting at home, and then starting all these creative journey of mine. And then I said, okay, let me see what happens. And this is the crisscross zoom blur. More examples of that. And now, if you can just get away with one thing and one thing only, and you don't want to be bothered with Photoshop or anything, I would say buy this $35 filter that you can get on Amazon. And so it's called Whirlpool Prism Filter. And I can send the link to you guys. Ellen, I can send you the link. You can share it with people if you want. So now I tried it with flowers. I did it with people. I think it only works with the divine stuff. Like, it simply doesn't work for anything else. But I have lots and lots of fun. And anytime I show it to people, like, how did you do that? You cannot do that in Photoshop this nicely. So and this is a church in New Jersey. Um, it's in Brick, New Jersey. I forgot that it has some unusual name. And I saw the altar in one of those Christian magazines, and I had to go. I had to go. So, and it has that kind of glow around the way they put the lighting, and the filter that I had, that's the filter. It's 90% done in camera, 10% enhanced in Photoshop. There's also Long Branch Church, the same filter. So I'll give you the name of the filter probably. And these are more examples of my seascapes. I do a lot of abstracts, the seascapes, like I said. And some are done with the very wide angle lens, some are done with the mid-range lens, some are done with like really close-up lenses like 70 to 200. And this is also done really in camera. This is where what I do. And then Al goes with me because I don't know how to swim. And I'm running around, not a care in the world, but I'm shit scared of water. So he keeps saying that he's going to tie a rope around my waist and then just he's going to sit on a chair somewhere and I can go run around, come back. So far I haven't dropped my camera, even though I run around quite a bit. So these are all the things that you can do in camera. Okay. So this has a three stop ND filter, and this is handheld, three stop. Yeah. So I basically sit in front of the like a stand in front of the ocean, and then when the wave is coming, I just move just a little bit. And the way that you move your camera and then you move around, and that's what creates that movement. And also what time, like is it like like a high tide or low tide? If you go in the low tide, you don't get this kind of volume in the water, then you won't have that kind of effect. So if it is too high tide and like large waves, then too much lather in the front, like too much frothing. So you have to find that I call that mid tide. So I actually plan it exactly the way 2 to 3 hours away. The high tide is 2 to 3 hours away from the sunrise is the sweet spot. Like, that's when I go towards the sunrise time. And so I have like a mid tide, and then I can get this kind of images. And then my favorite location is Spring Lake. That's because it's only 45 minutes away from my house. But if I were to, like if I were to given a choice of like, okay, pick a place, I would say Cape Cod for doing these kind of images. And the other one would be Outer Banks. This is about less than 2 seconds. Yeah. This is a combination of like two, three images, then I put them together. The meaning the sky is different, and I have two wave images, then I put them together because you generally don't see two waves coming at the same time with this kind of spacing in between. I just wanted to create an image that speaks to me, and I spend a lot of time at the ocean, and I said like I need something to represent all the time that I put in there. This is all like in camera. Okay, well, I enhance the colors, I would say, but then it's not something that you can create in Photoshop. These kind of lines of the waves, you cannot create them. So that's why I call this program Creative Blurs in camera and in Photoshop. So I'm going to show you some of the examples. And you can also do this. This is not a seascape. This is basically um, um, we were at Ohio Pile State Park in Pennsylvania, and there was like lots of white water going in the river. So I just panned a lot of pans after that. Like I got that nice image. And this is shot with a 70 to 200 lens, and I was like nicely away, not even close to the water, like almost like a 20 feet away or so on a yoga mat on my belly. So the only good thing that you need to remember is if you want to, you have to get low to the ground to have this kind of close-up view of the waves. And the same day, it's the same thing. This is zoomed in all the way, and this is zoomed out. And also, if you look at it, there is a slight pan, a slight horizontal pan in this image, whereas here, this is just a straight up shot, but it's still long exposure shot. It's the same day again. The flowers, I love them because I can get like 5, 6, 10 images out of one flower. I cannot say the same thing with Yellowstone or Yosemite or someplace or a waterfall. You get one, maybe two shots, but when you go to the ocean, you get multiple shots. These are all done on the same day, if you can believe it. And they have different feel, same lens, same camera, everything else is same. It's just the panning motion is different, and the zoom length is different. It's the same lens, but 70 to 200. So that's why I'm saying that these are the things that you can have immense satisfaction. And this is done with a 14 millimeter lens. This is in Cape Cod. So let me show you the yeah, okay. So when you're panning, especially if you're hand holding it, your movement, how slow, how deliberate your movement is, and how smooth your movement is, is what is going to show up in the end image. If you look at this here, there's a little two curves here, right? That's hand shot. And this one is again the same place, same time. This is on the tripod. The motion is much more smoother. There is no jerk in the movement. And that's the big difference. That's the only difference. It's shot with the same 14mm lens and a slightly longer shutter speed. And using a tripod makes a big difference. You can do it with flowers too, right? This is actually, dancing, while, I put a 3-stop ND filter and then black background and then 3 callus. I did that. And then this is a regular shot. And then I expanded the canvas and then put them together to create that. This is just multiple exposure. I did an out of focus shot and then I did a regular shot. And it's not even like, well, color enhanced in Photoshop, but our Lightroom actually. So, and this is completely done in camera. So I went to shoot birds at Bombay Hook and there were no birds. So I saw this and then I said, like, I don't want to go home empty-handed. I need to do something. It looked like a bird. So and then there are multiple exposures that you can do. Okay, so in this case, what I did was I took a multiple exposure shot and I took a straight shot and I combined them in Photoshop. Again, the reason why I did that is people with vertigo, when they look at your pictures, if it's completely done in camera, there is no place for their eyes to land and then makes them queasy. I had a friend who very early on complained, and that's when I started looking into this. So more multiple exposure examples. So same story, basically out of focus shot, two multiple exposure settings in camera, and one is out of focus and one is in focus. That's the only difference, all done in camera here. Okay, so this is in Cliffwood Beach. If anybody wants to get the location, let me know. You can shoot from like, yeah, it's from the top. You can look down and take the shot. However, I was using a 24-105 lens. I didn't have the longer lens. Sorry, not longer, wider lens. So I could not include the sky in an effective way. So I took that, and then I took the shot of the sky later on, and I combined them. And this is after post-processing. This is what I got. By the way, I did this course that the entire program was done, and it is on visual wilderness. I'm not saying that you go buy it. First of all, I don't even know if the guy is in business anymore or not because they moved to Canada. Wife is not feeling well. So that's why I don't know if the course is available or not. If it is, then if you want more detailed instructions on how to do this, I did the course there. And then also in post-processing, I do these kind of things like I shot. So you can buy this vase on Amazon. And I got a couple, and every time I give a presentation like this, and then and then people buy immediately, and then they keep sending me pictures. Like, oh, I bought this, and what do I do now? So that's what you do. Look at that. See, I applied the blurs, and so there is one program called Alien Skin, which they changed their name to Exposure Software now. And they have something called bokeh filters. And I applied that filter. So I shot like this. So this is out of camera. All I did is apply that blur to the vase. So how do you do that is, first of all, do your minimum processing in Photoshop. Take it into, in Lightroom. Take it into Photoshop and make a duplicate layer and apply what are the blur that you need to apply from the plugin. And then by using layers and masks, you hide the rest and only select the vase, and that's it. So it's not difficult if somebody shows you how to do it. But if you were to sit and trying to figure it out, it takes a little longer. And by the way, even though I experimented a lot, I did have a base that came from somebody else. His name is David Duchamp, who actually taught me basic architectural blurring techniques and such. And then I took it and ran with it, and then I went crazy. So now look at this. How many of us have these kind of shots? We don't know what to do with them, right? I mean, cell phone shots, regular shots, and At one point, especially when we're just starting out, we would think that, oh, this is not bad. I mean, it's showing the flower and all. But after that, then like, whatever, that's all showing, right? I did that. It's like ghosts hanging around. And then I said, that's not enough. I want even more. I got that. So it might not be everybody's cup of tea. I get that. But for me, it's like a kind of a Halloween kind of vibe to it, right? Now, what I did, I was in Oregon, by the way. I don't know how many of you know Brian Peterson, who passed away a couple days ago. So this actually was done with Brian Peterson in his workshop in Oregon, 2014. So I took the shot. This is a wide angle shot, and I took the panning. He was teaching everything and everything in I would tell him that I'm not going to the junkyard. I don't like junkyard pictures. And then he actually spent 15, 20 minutes explaining what I can look for in a junkyard and made me take some pictures. And he told me, you're not allowed to take any flower pictures in the junkyard. So anyway, I took these two shots, right? So in camera blur, and then I took the wide angle, and then I combined them, right? And the same thing. This is actually is near Pennsylvania. There's a Bowman's Reserve. Yeah. So I was there one day, and I saw the scene, and I loved the curve. I took the shot. I come home. It was not as pretty as I thought it was in camera at the time. So I did that. Okay. So now that is just the presentation part of it. And let's see how much we can cover. How much time do we got? Okay, let's go. Okay. So now that you saw the presentation and the possibilities of what can be done in camera, what can be done in Photoshop, again, I'm not trying to make you Photoshop experts. I'm just trying to introduce the blurring techniques and then see how you can use it's like so Al is the handyman in the house. I don't know how to use anything, right? So what he can teach me is like, okay, how the screwdriver works versus how the chainsaw works. Then as long as I know what each one can do, then I can appropriately feel like, where I should use the chainsaw versus screwdriver. It's the same thing. If you know like what techniques exist, and then you can start thinking creatively as to, okay, I want to swirl, then what do I do? Maybe I can go to the spin blur or the zoom blur, or I want a vertical pan, then motion blur. So I want you to start connecting those dots, and that's the class basically today's presentation is about. So I was at a nursery. This was a very old picture, I think 2014. Yeah. So I took the shot. Was I really liked how this one flower is leaning over the other one. I shot with a f2.8, pretty, um, shallow depth of field, but I still don't like all the background there. And this is straight out of camera. So I made simple adjustments. Okay, I saturated just a little bit. I changed the white balance just a little bit. I cropped it just a little bit also, and added a little clarity, a little vibrance, nothing special. Then, so now you remember, you say you have a little imperfection here, a little something here, right? And the leaf is showing. This is my end image. Okay, so I basically cleaned up. So how did I do that? Let's see. So going to go to edit in. So this technique is called field blur. You can use a field blur or you can use a Gaussian blur. Gaussian blur has a little bit more diffused glow to it compared to field blur. That's the only difference, not much difference. Okay, so I open this up. Whenever I open, it comes into Photoshop. Let me actually change this to 8. So smaller size. And I am going to do a Control or Command J to duplicate the layer. And then I go to filter and then say convert to smart filters. Always work with either a smart object or smart filter is the same as a smart object. So the reason why I'm saying that is because when you convert a layer into a smart object and then you apply a filter, 10 years later, you can come back and then you can click on that filter and you can it will still remember the settings that you used. If you want to change something, you will be able to change that. And that's why. So now I go to filter, and under filter and blur gallery, I click on field blur. It defaults to 15. You can change it to whatever you want. So I'm going to go to about, I'm not paying attention to the flower. I'm only paying attention to the background. So let's say about that. And I'm going to say, okay. This is my first step just to see how I like whether it is doing a good job or not, right? So I still don't like whatever I see all these areas. So I'm going to go back to the history and I'm going to start fixing these things. So I'm going to take a lasso tool, and now we have all these generative tool and all that. But generally, I would just go for Shift F5, brings me to Content Aware tool, the old-fashioned one, and I'm going to do that. No. Okay. If that doesn't work, then I go to Spot Healing, no, Clone tool, S. Okay. S for Clone tool. And then I'm just going to pick something there, and then I'm just going to, I just don't want that to show there, that's all. And then I'm also going to fix this area here. It doesn't have to be perfect for me. And then I'm going to convert this into smart filters. And then I can go back and then work on my blur. Blur gallery and field blur. Okay, so I'm going to go to about 35 to 40. Somewhere there, 45, say okay. Now there are a couple of ways to fix this because I don't want my flowers to be blurry, right? So what I do is I'm going to turn off that layer. I can go to select and I can say select subject. It's pretty decent what it does, but you have to remember that always has some issues. So you have to zoom in and make sure that it's properly selected. See, in this case, it did not select nicely here. So I'm going to go to the object selection tool, and I'm going to make sure that I'm in the plus, and come on. I am roughly telling it where to go, and then it's doing a okay job. Come on. And if it does a boo-boo, all I have to do is click the Alt key, and then I'm going to do another selection there. I generally don't like to work with the object selection tool, so I might go to the quick selection tool, and then I'm going to do one more time. It gives me trouble now, doesn't it? Come on. So anyway, you get the point, right? So now I'm going to turn on this layer, and I'm going to turn on the mask. I'll click on the mask. I already have the selection. So now the mask is inverted, right? All I have to do is Control I, or I can go to the layer. Sorry, select invert mask. I don't remember because I always remember my shortcut. So I'm going to do Control I, and that is my selection here. Okay, so now if you look at it, my job is not done. That's basically, I put on a mask, right? The mask is okay, but the problem is, look at the halos. And this is where a lot of people fail. They just do this much and then they think that they have done a great job, but no, you have to pay attention. That is not a good look, right? So now I carefully, this is where 80% of the work is done in 20% of the time. The Pareto principle in project management they talk about, the 20%, the work will take 80% of the time. So this is where you need to start spending time. And basically, I'm going to go here and then zoom in to 100% right there and start cleaning up. Now, I'm not going to go into the how to clean and all that because I have 6 more images to show you. But basically, I want you to pay attention to the edges. And if this is it, and if I'm judging the competition, pictorial, generally you don't do this for regular competition, but the pictorials and such, right off the bat, I won't even consider this as a good picture. It doesn't even get a 7 or a 6. So just remember that. Okay, next one. I'm going to show you the finished image in just a minute. That's my finished image. Okay, no halos. All right. So the next one we're going to show is the dahlia. So I photographed this dahlia. It's slightly overexposed, not a lot, but slightly. So I made whatever the little corrections in Lightroom. Basically, I brought down on the exposure, brought down on the highlights, up the shadows, brought down on the blacks quite a bit to introduce the contrast. Made it less contrasty at the top because most of my flowers are less contrasty for a reason. The more contrast in flowers, in my opinion, actually spoils the delicate nature of the flowers. So that, again, that's my personal opinion. You don't have to subscribe to the principle. That's fine. So then I took this into Photoshop. So let's see, edit in. And generally what I do is I go to the navigator button. I put this into 100% and or 66% in this case. So let's make it 100%. And then using this red box, I go around and see if there are any dust spots, if there are any little abnormal artifacts that I have to fix, which I would fix right away, right? Like in this case right here. So I'm going to take a lasso tool. Why did you do that? Okay. And Shift F5, and that fixed it. Now, you can also turn on this annoying AI generative fill. AI generative fill is very useful, but not for these little simple things. I just don't like to use that for little things. If I want to replace a petal, then I will bring in the big gun. Otherwise, what happens is every time I am selecting something, it follows me like a puppy. I hate it. So I just go away and I am hiding it. I don't want it. So it really is annoying. Okay, so I'm going to go through and I'm going to fix any little things that I don't like to see. Okay, that's taken care of, any dust spots or anything. Now I'm going to do Command J, Control J to duplicate the layer. I'm going to apply the smart filters. Then I'm going to go into Filter, Blur, Radio Blur. Okay, and then I'm going to apply about, so first time when I'm doing it, just for the checking it, I'm just going to put it in the draft mode because otherwise it takes a little bit of time. So I'm going to put it in the draft mode. I'm going to apply whatever the amount. Because we are working in the smart filters, I can always come back to tweak it. So let's see what it does. Oh, I didn't change it to zoom. Sorry. So that's the beauty of it. I can double click it and change that to zoom. So there are two kinds of blurs, the spin blur and the zoom blur. You want the zoom blur, well, for this case, in this case. And then all I have to do is apply a mask, make sure that I am in a black brush, B for brush, and make sure that I'm in opacity, let's say about 40, 50%. And I'm going to slowly bring out the center. So this is my before and this is my after. I might want to crop it a little bit, but basically this is the process. Now, this is not a finished image. This is just a process. And then you can do like 2 layers of zoom blurs. It's up to you. But again, first of all, a lot of people don't even know that you can do this in Photoshop. So my goal is to introduce you to this and then see what you can do with it. Okay, so that is two very easy stuff, easy peasy, right? And then the next one, this is a little bit more work. So let's see. This is my before. This is, everybody knows this place, I think, in New Jersey, Montclair, Presby, Iris Gardens. It's nice. I liked it when I shot this, and this is 2022, not that far ago, or long ago. And I made that. Okay. How did I do that? Now, I'm not going to take you through every step. Just want to show you quickly because, again, I already preserved the layers of what I've done. Give me a second. Oh, don't act on me today. Is it coming? Come on. Yeah, I did that and then I said edit original and then it just went somewhere. Okay, so my usual stuff, what I do. So let's see image and I'm going to duplicate this. That's my original image. And then I duplicated it. I didn't save that part. Okay, never mind. Let's do it. It might not be that good, but we'll do it. Okay. Now I'm going to do Command J, Control J, and I am going to make this into small. Before I do a smart filter, I'm going to select this area. I'm going to select this area. I'm going to tell AI generative fill to generate something. This is not what I usually do. At least in 2022, that's not what I've done. But I just want like a plain without the flower in my second layer. So let's see what it does. Okay, that's good. All right. So now I'm going to merge it down. So I have one layer, I have the second layer. Now I'm going to convert this into smart filter. And now I'm going to apply motion blur. Now I know I want to do like a vertical blur on this one because the grass is, or the leaves are vertical, right? But the distance is up to you. You can go from anywhere between a couple of hundred to 700, or you can completely obliterate that to 2000. I don't like that much, so I'm just going for about like 4 to 700, around that. So let's say about 500. Say okay. And then I am going to make another copy, Command J, Control J of the background. And I'm going to drag it all the way to the top. And I'm going to hold my Alt key and then apply a black mask to it. Now I am going to slowly bring the, let's see if I can, for brush, white brush, because I want to reveal, I know that it's somewhere here. Why don't you want to come through? Oh, great. Okay, so because my background does not have a lot of clutter in it, I can get away with not a precise kind of selection, right? So and then I can go with 20% and then slowly, just to be on the uniform side, I'm also giving a little chaotic because you don't want it to be too orderly like that you have done in Photoshop. Yeah, you put on the makeup, but you don't want to show that you put on makeup. Like you want that subtle kind of look. The same thing here, right? So now I am going to go a little closer and then I'm going to put in 100% opacity and then bring in rest of the flower. So I keep working with my opacities and layers and masks, right? So again, this is not a lot of work, but you need to have the patience to have like, so again, it's not clean job. I'm trying to do it as fast as I can. Then what I did is I gave it a little kind of darker look because the yellow is nice and bright. So I wanted everything else to kind of fade away. That you can do later on, but I just wanted to introduce you to that motion blur and always go with the smart filter because then what happens? I can go to the motion blur here and then I can change it backwards, or I can change it forward, like I can do whatever. But for leaves, generally stick between about 300 to 500 is the sweet spot. Anything more, it just looks too inorganic. Okay, so that is one, right? And the same irises, this is just one iris, right? So this is another one that I did. I got all these. So the white irises in the background. This is cleaner compared to, see, this one is cleaner compared to this one. So before I apply motion blur, I have to go and clean all that up. And that's what I got. Okay, so again, the same principle is clean it up, duplicate the background, and then make it into smart object, and then apply the motion blur, and then try to apply the mask to bring in the flowers, right? That's, yeah. Smart object, smart filter. So if you, when you click on smart filter, there's say yeah. So when you say apply smart filter at the top, it creates that as a smart object. Yeah. So, okay. So any questions so far? I forgot even to ask if anybody has any questions online. I sometimes I just go in my own zone. Like I look at here. If you don't follow, okay. Uh-huh. Yeah, you can. So if when you go here, like if you see, I'm going to click on this, right? This is 90 degrees, right? If I were to make it as, if I make it 0 degrees and then do this, look at that. That's horizontal. And then you can change the degree to whatever you want. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the same thing with the radial blur too. Like I don't know if I showed you in the radial blur, the settings actually. So let's just see for shits and giggles. We are going to do one radial just to show you some of the settings in that. Blur, radial blur. Because sometimes, so it is default to the center here. Look, you see that? But you can change the center any which way you want. And then let's say if I did that, then it's going to center just around the iris. So then if I don't like it, see right now, I didn't do a smart object. So now I cannot go back and fix it. So the only way to fix this is to go back in the history. Now turn this again into a smart object or smart filter. It's again the same thing. And then if I go for the radial blur, see what happens. Now, if I don't like that, I can go back to it. See, now I can go back to it and say, no, just change that a little bit more. Like, oh, if I can talk to it. And then I can bring in the flower from the background. Yeah. Okay. So every filter will have some settings that you need to understand how they work like. Okay. So now I have to show you one interesting one. Escape this one. Let's see. Okay. I went from there. This is a plain shot. This is 1/20th of a second. Still a little longer exposure, but it was not long enough and it is not panned. So from there, I went into this one. Okay, how did I do that? I only did this, I think, yesterday. So of all the blurs, if you ask what is the best blur tool that I like, there are actually two. One of them is called Path Blur. The other one is the Alien Skin or exposure software, Bokeh blurs. Those are the two my favorites. The rest of them, like Gaussian blur, field blur, they're like useful idiots. They're there. I use them if I want them, but I'm not a big fan of those. So sorry, they are big files and okay, let me change that into 8-bit mode. That way at least it'll be a little okay. Now, how did I do this? Come on. Yeah, no, it's not. Okay, this is ridiculous. I am
So when you bring it into the same,
yeah, this is for demo purposes. I have my catalog sitting at home with all the stuff. I just did a portable catalog, so I don't want to create more copies of that. So I'm doing edit original.
normally, if I made adjustments in Lightroom, I would send it.
Yeah, edit a copy. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I didn't make any changes, first of all. And the second thing is this is just my travel catalog. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, so let me cancel this out. I'm going to just going to redo this. I don't have the patience for this.
Padma,
Sorry.
if you change the image size, would it go faster?
I did that to 16 bits to 8 bits, but it's simply too many layers. So
Oh.
let's do it again. Okay. I'm going to take this and then I'm just going to do it quickly because there's a lot of dust spots in it and I spent a lot of time cleaning them, but it is. Come on. Okay. So let's not look at the dust spots. Okay. So basically I want to make sure that the horizon is clean. So that means I'm going to drop a ruler slightly off. And again, if you are a judge, the very first thing that you look at is the horizon. And if I see crooked horizon, they're not getting more than 7. So control J. So I did a control J or command J for duplicate the layer. Go to edit, retransform, control T, and then right click and rotate. And now I am going to slightly, oh, I cannot do that. I have to do this. So I'm going to rotate this and then make sure that it is, yep. Okay, another problem with wide angle shots is unless, some of you are flat earthers, we know that the round earth is round. You will see a little concave in the horizon, just a little concave. If you're shooting with a 12mm lens, it is much more profound, and then you see a lot more curve. Sorry, I didn't mean to demean the flat earthers, but I'm just saying. So I just want to say one just little story. I uh, one of the very famous black and white photographers, my favorite whatever. So, well, not my favorite anymore. So I took a workshop with him. I go to Valencia. The night before the workshop started, he would sit in the restaurant. You were not there that day. So I went with like a bunch of friends, and so the guy sits there and says, please don't tell me you're one of those people who believe in moon landing. I'm like, what the what? What? And this guy is not even American, he's English. And then he's talking to me like I'm the idiot to believe the moon landing actually happened. I'm like, okay. And then I said, Joseph, let's not talk anything else. We're just here to learn what are the techniques he has to offer. We don't care what he believes in. Just don't say anything. But he was disparaging us, like saying, like, please don't tell us. And then he would come to our face, right to our face, and start smoking right into our face. And then he says, we are not in America anymore. I'm like, what the hell? So anyway, now let's see. We fix the horizon, and let's say we fix the dust spots, right? What is the next step? But before we do that, because we rotated this, the canvas is just a little, like if you look at here, this is off. So what we need to do is scale out, because we are already in transform tool, we're going to scale this just a bit out so that we don't need to fix the edges. There are a couple of ways to do this. This is one way I would do that, so that I don't have those transparent edges or anything. Okay, then now here I'm just going to flatten this. And then I'm going to do Command J. This is only to not to have too many layers. And I'm going to do Smart Filters. Okay, now this time I can do just a motion blur, like a regular motion, horizontal motion blur. That's not what I want to show you. I want to show you a different blur technique. So go to Filter, Blur Gallery. And then we're going to go to Path Blur this time. Now, path blur is really interesting. If you see most of my church images that I post with blurry things, I use path blur for a lot of them. I do zoom blur in camera. I do a regular shot. I bring them into Photoshop. When the blur is not enough for me with the zoom blur, then I use the path blur to enhance the blur more. So what I do here is, I don't want a regular blur, like a horizontal blur. So these are the little paths that I can draw. So I'm going to delete the first one. I'm going to start putting them here. So first one, I'm going to go from here and make sure that it's straight line, because the top one is going to be the straight line. And then I'm going to take the next one. I'm clicking slightly off the canvas. And I'm going to give a little curve to this. And then I'm going to go this line. I'm going to go a little, oops, don't do that, don't do that. You can also actually change the curve slightly if you want by clicking on that control point there. Okay, and then I'm going to do okay, so now the magic happens here. I'm going to uncheck the centered blur. And then I'm going to start increasing the speed. Now, it all depends on how much speed that you want to have and all. But right now, you cannot work with individual paths. That's the only problem the path blur has. You can do it in layers, but there's a spill of the blur. So it becomes a little difficult. And that's, in my opinion, this is the only limitation the path blur has, that all the paths will have the same blur amount. So the other way to do it is to actually take sections of it, like individual sections, right? But then there won't be any spillover, but then there will be lines that are visible. So I experimented quite a bit with this, right? So anyway, so again, I'm not going to go into too many details of how I ended up with that image. However, this is where, say, okay. And then I can apply the regular run-of-the-mill saturation, color grading, and whatever that I want to do. While that's happening, I'm going to show you some of the examples. I don't know if we'll have time to go through all them. Let me show you this one, World Trade Center. This is the shot of me and my friend Christine. Oh, no, that's not the shot. Anyway, okay, so this is the World Trade Center. Actually, this is the day of, or a couple days after it opened, I think. So anyway, we were there and I got the shot. I really liked it, but I did not know what to do with it. It's just not speaking to me. I like the patterns and everything. So I created that out of that. So how did I do that is basically I applied a motion blur, but then I masked out this area, just the not a difficult technique. It's just that, where you don't want the blur to be applied, you just mask it out. That's all I did. So you can you can apply these kind of techniques where you see a lot of like long columns, like, you know, if you go to a church or if you have a little lobby, like nice pillars, like, you know, you can apply those kind of things there. But when you have a church where you have pillars, but then you also have the horizontal views, then you can apply some kind of crisscross, the way that I showed it before. So you can do a horizontal pan and you can do a vertical pan and you can combine them in Photoshop later on. So again, there is so much more. Do you guys want to see this, how I did it? I just want to showcase, but let's go back here with it. It's finished. Yeah. So let me take away the ruler. So see, if I did just the regular blur, regular motion blur, everything would have been like straight up. Because I used the path blur, I actually kind of directed where the blur goes in the curve, following the water, right? So that's the beauty of path blur, and that's why I like the most. Now, do we want to keep going or you want to stop? If anybody have any questions? To the one with the trees, you got it. So when I first got my camera, the first 1 month, I was like a purist, right? You get it right in the camera and that's it. You go home otherwise. Within 1 month, I changed my mind. I'm like, no, these are all crap. If I have to make them look better, I don't know if I can be a great photographer, but I know that I'm in IT. I can pick up like software like nobody's business. Then I learned Lightroom within a month. And then I learned Photoshop layers and masks within like 2 months. So now, now I know all these things. I know how to use my camera in and out. I know how to use Lightroom. I know how to use Photoshop. My next problem is I'm not creative at all. Like I literally would go to people and I say that, how do you see this? How do you see this with my eyes? So when I met Brian Peterson first time in the airport, I told him that, I love you so much. I'm like, okay, she's a batshit crazy girl. Like, what's wrong with her? I don't know what he thought. Then I told him that his books were the first books that I read, Understanding Exposure, and there is a macro on flowers. Actually, he did a book. I have that, and then I watched every video of his on You Keep Shooting. I don't know if you guys watched any of his videos. If you didn't, you should. And his energy was like unbelievably good. So I told him I want to be you when I grow up. And he's like, kid, you're already there. Like my energy was there, it looks like. So anyway, he was the one in the very beginning. He showed us in the workshops, a couple of workshops, how to do the panning. That was before the internet was speaking about pans and blurs and all that. The first one. And the second one that was talking about pans and blurs was Tony Sweet. And he actually wrote a book on creative techniques. Like we're talking about like 2005, 6 or something. But I came across his books in like 2012, 2013. So these techniques were there long before I came into the scene or any of these so-called was it Adamski, the new guy. He just came into the scene and then he became like instantly famous on internet on blurring techniques. All right, so let's go here. So I'm just going to, this is out of camera. No, this is, let's see, reset. That, look at that. That's not great, right? So I basically, um, history, I'm going to go back. So I brought down on the exposure just a bit. Again, low on the highlights, high on the shadows, but then low on the blacks. And that way it gave some kind of nice contrast to it. Had clarity, vibrance, and then I think I did the lens corrections, chromatic aberrations, and pretty much it. Okay, then I'm going to right click, edit in. I'm going to show you a couple of techniques here. All right, first things first, I know that I want to expand the canvas to have some room for the trees to have that motion, right? So I'm going to go to here, and there is this cool technique that generative AI can do. So if I can do this, why is it not coming up? Ah, it doesn't want to come. Anyway, that's fine. I'm just going to do this. And I clicked on the generative expand and it tries to fill it with whatever. I don't need to have exact definitions, meaning like definition of the trees or anything, because everything is going to be blurred at the top anyway. So I just want some semblance of like continuation, right? So I did that. So that's good. Now I'm going to flatten this. And Command J, Control J, filter. Oh. Smart filters. And then I'm going to go to blur, motion blur. I'm going to start with 200 first. Okay. And then I'm going to do right click and then I'm going to say new smart object via copy. Okay. And this time I'm going to have a couple hundred more. And then I'm going to take one more, convert to smart object again. Oh, no. Sorry. Copy via smart object. I did a undo command Z, control Z, and then new smart object via copy. And I'm going to have what, 1,000. Okay. So now I have 3 layers of this. I'm going to turn off one layer at a time. I'm going to apply a mask here for this one. Motion blur, the first motion blur. I'm going to make a black brush. And I'm going to start with 50% opacity. And I'm going to start removing that in this area. Okay, so that's my first layer. Okay, my second layer, and I'm going to do edit, transform. Now I'm going to bring this up just a little bit, a few pixels. Now, why am I doing that? I just wanted to give some layers of motion blur. That's why I'm just moving that up just a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do mask, black brush, and I'm going to brush this out. And then the third one, what do? Same thing, Command T, Control T, or I can go to free transform from this menu. I'm going to move this up a bit more than before. So I'm just a little bit. Say okay. And the same thing, black brush, and I'm masking this road out or in, whatever you call it. Okay. So then what I would do is I'm going to make a copy of the background layer again, Control J, Command J. I'm going to bring it all the way up. And I'm going to apply a black mask. To apply a black mask, hold the Alt key and click on this, and it'll apply a black mask with a 10% opacity and a white brush. Remember, I don't want everything uniform, I told you, right? So I just want to bring in the little chaos into this. Just a little chaos, because otherwise it just looks like all straight lines. No, I want that little chaos in there. Now, okay, my finishing touches. So this is basically how I do the blur, but that's not it. I want the road, the lines to stand out. right? So that's nothing to do with the blur, but the overall finish of that. So what do? I'm going to apply a curves. I'm going to make that kind of, don't worry about it yet. So make it darker and make sure that this mask, I'm going to do Control-I to invert the mask. It's a black mask. Now with the white brush, B for brush, and make sure that my white brush is on, and about, let's say about 30–40% opacity. I'm going to get that, I want that blackness to like enhance a little bit, just for the road. Now I want to show you one cool trick before we stop. That is, I don't like the yellow. I want like just in your face kind of fall colors. And it's not that fall yet, or it's kind of past the prime already. So I'm going to do Control-Shift-Alt-E. I am not doing a great job with selections and all. Why? Because again, I'm just showing you how to do this. And it's up to you to go home and try, take up one of your favorite fall images and then try the same technique. How many of you got Nik filters? If you want spectacular fall colors, and sometimes the cuckoo way out, I used to think that, okay, saturating your images were bad. That was back like 2014, 2015. I joined 500 pics, and then I see all these images getting like editor's choice and blah, blah, and all those things. And like, I see like overcooked, and I said like, it's not too bad. It's okay. So I had to learn to be like outrageously colorful. So, okay, so there is one filter. Which one was that? Indian summer. Yeah. Haha. You see that? That's like Halloween fall colors. We don't want that much. We we just want just a little bit, okay? So that gives you that. I mean, you can be there if you want, that's fine. I did to some of them. Or the other way to do it is, so I did that just to bring a little, okay, fall color into it. Then I'm going to go into, so there are a couple of other ways. See, there are other filters here too, but I'm going to stick to it there. So let's see there, somewhere there. And then I'm going to add the same Indian summer. And this time I'm going to use control points. And then I'm going to do enhance foliage and control point. I am just going to place it on these leaves here. Let me exaggerate this a little bit so that you see what I'm talking about. Come on. Alt, alt. So just to give that, because I want the road to like stand out. For that, I am trying to do as much as I can to have that enhanced. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that Indian summer on your fall images with like 10–15% opacity, don't go overboard, will give like nice in your face kind of colors, but not like blood red colors. We don't want that. That's pretty bad, but anyway. So that's how I do my blurs. Anyway, I didn't save this, so let's see. That's my end image. So the little details in the end is what that matters, right? Applying motion blur is anybody will do, not a problem. But then bringing back the background just a little so that it is not like just severe motion blur is what makes the image, in my opinion. So yes, well, that's why you have to be extra careful. Yeah, you cannot just go like willy-nilly. Yeah, well, you can. Yeah.
Padma, when you have the various layers, did you use any kind of blending mode other than just normal?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Now, if you want, you can also like to further make it even more striking. I actually did in this case is the stumps. I actually make them a little darker too to stand out a little bit further. So this is all like regular dodging and burning, that whatever that you see fit, how much time you want to spend. So, All right, I think I'm going to stop right here. Otherwise, I mean, I can show you like more images, but yeah. So I was telling Alan that I have the similar program. I gave this to Seattle Photoshop users group. I got like rave reviews, and I gave it to one of the New Jersey. I don't remember which camera club. It was a Bergen camera. I don't remember. And so they usually do the survey after the presentation, and they send me the survey result. One person gave 5 out of 5, one person gave 1. Why? Because he thinks it's too much Photoshop and it's not photography. So okay, all right. That whenever people say that, I feel like they're just exemplifying their lack of knowledge of Photoshop. And probably they're jealous or angry or something that they don't know as much as the other person knows. Exactly. Plus, so most of us are like, we don't make a living out of photography, like not as far as I know. We're all doing it for fun. So if it makes you happy, do it. If it doesn't make you happy, don't do it. It's as simple as that. Yeah. That's all matters. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I do judge too, and my judging is slightly different. I was so sick of people like they're so when people are judging, they don't look at the soul of the image. They look. I have like 3 major rules. The horizons need to be straight. Please don't have any dust spots, and then your exposure needs to be correct. But other than that, I don't have those strict rules. Like no. Is it telling me a story? Is it different from anything else? Did you put any effort into taking the picture? Is it just a snapshot that you're throwing it in my face? Those are the things that I look at. And it's and then so NJPPA asked me once, and then it's like this. Oh no, that's not how you're supposed to judge. I was like, no, then I'm not judging for you, I guess. Once they see me, I think they'll never ask me back again, you know. So I don't judge by the book because this is not by the book. It has to have a soul. So all right. Any more questions? Okay, all right.
It's a great presentation. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. I had heard of Adamski and I actually tried his technique, but you've taken it to a whole different level. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
The Adamski guy has nothing. You have to go check David Duchamp. He's been doing it for much longer than
Yeah.
that Adamski guy is. I think Adamski knows how to market himself very well.
Yeah,
However, but believe me, if you want the original masters, like did this, that's Tony Sweet, Brian Peterson. They have written books way before the internet. So
okay, great. So you mentioned David Duchamp?
yeah, David Duchamp is a French photographer. Mention my name. He's very easy to reach and very, very nice guy. He got
How do you spell
bunch
the
of
last name?
Duchens.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Don't forget to mention my name.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay.
Any more questions from people online?
None from me. It's a great presentation.
Okay, I hope everybody online enjoyed the presentation and is going to try some of the techniques, and the same for everybody here. I'll say good night to everybody online.
All right. Have a good night.
Good night.